Hey guys, I'm Mike Venezia. This is Wayne Johnson. We're here from Taylor Guitars, hanging out on the famous orange couch at the Music Zoo to talk about V-Class bracing. Now, for 150 years, acoustic guitar makers generally have used an X-brace pattern to make their guitars. And why? Well, this pattern's worked. It's been very loud, it produced very lovely tones, and projected quite well. However, what we discovered is there's always a compromise between volume and sustain that's inherently found in an X-brace top guitar. And what Andy Powers, our master designer at Taylor Guitars, set out to do was create something that had volume and sustain work independently of one another. Now, a little bit of background: volume is dictated by flexibility, and stiffness will dictate sustain. So obviously, if you have more volume, it's more flexible, but it'll be less stiff, therefore you'll have less sustain. So there's that compromise. Well, what Andy Powers created was V-Class bracing. And what this does is it allows volume and sustain to work independently of one another by creating a stiff center line down the center of the instrument via the V-brace. That's creating all the stiffness you need for your sustain. And it allows for lightly braced sides, so that's going to create more volume. Now, what we say is more volume, it's more volume per note up and down the entire fingerboard. So every note up and down the fingerboard will have independent power and value, and in addition, we'll also have more sustain per note. So every note's going to ring out longer, and each note will be a little bit louder and a little bit more equal up and down the fingerboard.
That's awesome. Let me play this scale here, just a simple E scale, and just listen to the sustain. This could take a long time. It's interesting, as we get higher, most of the time, the note gets a little choked off, but not with this one. Even up here. Pretty amazing.
But one other thing that we discovered is that V-Class bracing actually enhances intonation. And that's a kind of a two-part process. Part one is compensation, which is how the string travel on the instrument, the distance between the nut and the saddle, also known as the scale, and how the saddle is seated within the bridge, the angle at which that's seated within the bridge to make every note ring out truer up and down the fingerboard. The other part of it is how the harmonic overtones interact with one another. And that's where V-Class bracing really shines. So we mentioned that we have a stiff center line and that the lightly braced sides provide more volume. How that all works together is it rocks over that center line like it's a teeter-totter. So what it does is outputs those notes in a more orderly fashion. In contrast, an X-brace top has quadrants that kind of vibrate almost scattershot all over the top of the instrument. So some of you may have found when you're tuning a guitar and you have a microphonic tuner, you hit that low E and it picks up 17 other notes before it zeroes in on E. That's because it's picking up all those other overtones that are coming out of the instrument in a very scattershot fashion. With a V-Class bracing, because it's coming out in a more orderly fashion, those overtones are more lined up. They didn't go away, they're just coming out more orderly. And if you hit low E, you're gonna get E. So this also allows you more experimentation up and down the fingerboard, because as we all know, the further up the fingerboard you get, you start to cringe because those notes get a little squirrely and you get that beating and oscillation. So Wayne's going to show you how the intonation is enhanced with V-Class bracing.
So I'm just going to play a couple of triads and listen how clean they ring out and how true. Love that. How about this one too? No beats at all. Almost sounds like a little harp. Yeah. Yeah, that's really awesome.
So these are just different ways of approaching the building of a guitar that we feel is the future of guitar building at Taylor. You're going to see more and more V-Class brace guitars as time goes on. But right now here at the Music Zoo, they have probably one of the greatest collections of V-Class guitars you can find in a store anywhere. So make sure you come on in, check out the Music Zoo, check out V-Class bracing, check out Taylor Guitars. This was Mike Venezia and Wayne Johnson saying thank you so much.